The new meta is right here, right now, and it looks like something, alright.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another episode of Cardfight Update, and today we've got a very interesting reveal from Bushiroad. A couple days ago, Bushiroad revealed the very first card for the premium collection in the form of a new Shandy Stride for Bermuda Triangle. And as I reviewed in that video, I was a little bit on the side of the card. It was alright, it was good in some sense and it had potential in other sense, but we had alternative options that were in some case better or at the same level or could do something a little bit different that might have their edge above on top of that specific card that was coming from Bermuda Triangle. But Bushiroad was probably only teasing us, as they just dropped a new card for the set, and oh boy, that thing is insane. It might even be just outright broken in what it can do. Let's jump right into this card because it is speaking volumes. Before I reveal the card art itself and the card with the skill, I want to say that it's the evolution of Twin Sword, Knight of Twin Sword. It's his own personal stride. And as you're gonna see with the skill, I find it very interesting and elegant in a way that they evolved the original skill completely in this new sense. You can directly see their inspiration from the original card. So here's the original one, Knight of Twin Sword, with his skill Auto Rigid Circle, GB1. When it attacks the Vanguard, counter +1. If this unit is boosted, you may pay the cost. If you do, search your deck for up to one grade 2 card, and that's not named Knight of Twin Sword, call the Rigid Circle and shuffle your deck. That was the original concept of this unit. Now they revealed the Stride version, Twin Absolute Divine Knight, Saint of Twin Sword. And its skill is Auto and Vanguard Circle. When it attacks the Vanguard while boosted, cost counter +1, turn a card in your G-Zone face up, and search your deck for up to 2 grade 2s, call them to the Rigid Circle, and shuffle your deck. You can instantly see the reminiscence of the old skill, as it condition is that it needs to attack the Vanguard, it needs to be boosted, it can call a grade 2 for a cost of a counterblast, but in this evolution version it then also needs to flip open a G-Zone card, as it itself is also a G unit, but instead of one, it calls 2 different grade 2s. So it's a direct upgrade of it, but it's still very similar to the old one. And I like this design concept of how they incorporate the original unit in this Stride version. So kudos on Bushiroad R&D department in making the skill in this particular way. But the card has another skill, and that's Auto and Vanguard Circle. When your rearguard is placed from deck, that unit gets power plus 5k for each face-up card in your G-Zone. So basically when you use its skill and you call 2 units, you have flipped just one card open, so they get at least plus 5k. And if you used a G-Guard before that, that's potentially plus 10k. And if it's a later stride, that could be plus 20, plus 30, plus 40 on all these new superior called units. And as you might see, there is no restriction whatsoever on this entire card. It doesn't need any kind of specific hard card. It doesn't need to be any type of brave unit, so it's not keybound restricted. It's also not archetype name restricted. No blasters, no Alfred, no nothing. It can synergize with basically any card and any archetype and any deck. And everybody that's somewhat familiar with Royal Paladin might instantly see that this card is insane with the synergies that you have. This thing is what Royal Paladin Brave actually needed a year ago when they were trying to fix the deck. This is instantly fixing that issue for them, as well as for blasters. So for those who aren't familiar with the combos and how the decks work, let me explain how this card basically breaks those two archetypes. Usually when you're doing all the combos that those decks have, you need to have certain key pieces on the field or in your hand to fix everything and then have a good OTK turn setup. This card is that entire setup in one single card, and because it's also a stride card, you have always access to it. The only thing that you need is 1 counterblast, well, basically more counterblast depending on the combo you're doing, but basically 1 counterblast and a booster, that could also be a trigger, is enough. So on the Brave side of things, you have a pseudo-infinite loop combo that you can keep attacking with your grade 2 rearguards that can keep superior calling each other. The only thing that you need is a alt-mal Vanguard, and you need to have those specific grade 2s on the field, or either one of those two. Well, this card, when you just try it on top of alt-mal, if you're just using a Brave deck, you start on top of alt-mal, and you instantly call those 2 units when you attack with your Vanguard. So those 2 units that I'm referring to are Counteroffensive Knight Suleiman and Knight of Encouragement Albion. And these 2 units can pseudo-infinite loop each other and calling each other out every time they attack. Loop might not be that strong in most people's eyes, since they're just 9k attackers, and they might be a little bit stronger as when they have Brave, they get a little bit of power boost, but it's not high enough against probably most decks nowadays, as they have 12 or 13k base. But it's the second skill of this unit that makes this combo suddenly very scary, as it's get plus 5k every time you superior call something. And they superior call each other, so every attack is gonna get that power increase. And if you do this as your second stride, you probably have 3 or more cards open in your G-zone, and each attack can potentially be plus 15, plus 20, plus 30k. And then we're talking about something completely different, as we then generate 6 force markers, basically, as if you give plus 30k, that's 3 force markers, but seeing your superior calling to different circles, all those circles will have 3 force markers on them, and then we're talking something completely different. And then the pseudo-infinite loop is suddenly much more threatening. And you might say, well, you already have a similar card that does the same thing, but even better, and that's the new Vita Stride that basically forces your opponent to put 2 cards on the Guardian Circle, or the attack will always hit. Well, that is a better card until this new card generates enough power that your opponent is forced to call 2 cards anyway. So if this card generates plus 20, that's probably already gonna force 2 cards from your opponent's hand, unless they Perfect Guard or G-Guard with it. But note that Vita Stride only works with Brave units. This new Stride unit doesn't need Brave units, and Albion is not a Brave unit himself. So this card works with Albion, but the new Vides doesn't work with Albion. So that's the thing to keep in mind, that because this thing has no restriction, it's so much better in a lot more sense that it's just pretty damn insane to think about it. If we go back to the Blaster side of things, then we can look at Blaster Blade, Gancelot, and Swordsman of Light, Blaster Javelin, Lacrosse, and the new Flogel G version crit trigger. Anybody that's familiar with the new Alfred premium build knows that that deck is all about rewriting Alfred, generating force markers, and basically putting a lot of power in the field. Then superior calling Blaster Blade, call a bunch of Flogels, and then hope to god that you get a crit trigger on your Blaster Blade, and then resend Blaster Blade 2 to 3 times. That deck is all about the early game aggression, and everybody knows that once the game is past their first stride, that deck is doing okay, but it's definitely losing its skill potential and will just die to most other premium decks as they have more consistency later down the road. This stride basically fixed that problem, as suddenly, if they do not get their early game aggression going, they can just get it on their first stride, and probably even stronger and more consistent, because this will basically go out as follows. You ride an Alfred, you get a force mark on the field, maybe ride a couple more Alfreds if you have the special grade 2, get a couple force markers going, then stride into this thing, and you activate the skill. You call 2 grade 2s. One is Blaster Blade to the force marker field, to the force marker circle, and the other one is gonna be to Swordsman of Light, Blaster Javelin, Lacrosse, and Lafruse, of how you pronounce that name. And then you use Lafruse's skill to superior call 2 Flogels to the field, and you're basically set and ready to have a double restanding Blaster Blade that can have any kind of trigger stacked on top of it, and it will have some extra power because of this unit skills. In the least amount of power that you're gonna have is 25k. 1 force marker and 1 5k of this unit. That can be easily surpassed even higher. And don't forget, that Blaster Blade is gonna have resist. Because you can flip any G-Zone card open, so you're gonna flip Gancelot open. And Gancelot open in the G-Zone will give any Blaster Blade resist. So you have a double re-standard rearguard Blaster Blade with resist and potentially a crit or whatsoever. And you can do this consistently without any problem, so long as you have a booster. And that is insane. And this card will only become stronger later down the road, as it will generate more and more and more power. And both of these archetypes really benefit from both skills, and that's what this card makes insane. But now that this card is revealed, there are some interesting things that come to light for the upcoming premium collection. We now know that it won't be all about archetype supporting cards, as the Bermuda Triangle had Harmony support in how the skill works, but this Royal Paladin card doesn't at all. It's very generic in how it works, and and that makes an interesting topic about how are all the other cards going to be? Is it because Brave isn't really that reliable and Bushiroad didn't really want to give Brave another stride, as they have a lot of Brave strides nowadays? Is that the reason, or is this set going to be a mix? Some decks are going to get archetype restricted keyword support and others don't. Maybe it's depending on the type of unit that is going to get a stride unit, as seen as Twin of Night Sword wasn't a Brave specific card. And Shandy was a Harmony card. The grade 2 version of Shandy had a Harmony skill. So maybe depending on what type of unit that's get a Stride version, we're gonna get a specific skill. So History Maker, probably gonna get the Time Leap skill, as seen as its grade 2 version had a Time Leap skill. Morfessa, probably gonna get a Ritual skill. And maybe we can deduce it from that point of view and see how it works, that probably Velios won't get a wave skill, as seen as Velios himself didn't actually have a wave skill. Maybe Gastille will get a darkness skill, or darkness support, as seen as itself had a darkness skill in the original card. So that makes an interesting thing to talk about, as that comes up when you look at these cards. Also, my original premium collection prediction, I talked about potential markers on strides. But now looking at these two reveals, I think Bushiroad made a way to incorporate the reason why I wanted markers in my strides in a different way, so you don't have the actual markers. As the whole reason was to give these archetypes enough power or pushing power to be of use in this new era, as seen as Time Leap hits 11k numbers, and with these whole 12 and 13k base power, it doesn't really do anything. And with a Force marker, you fix that. Well, as you can see with the new Twin Sword skill, you give 5k for every card opening your G-Zone to everything cards as superior cost. So it's a little bit limited in the sense which units get the power, but it basically fixes the issue of what I had and why I came up with maybe we get markers for strides. So in that sense, they fixed that problem, and they also made a pseudo way of giving these decks markers, but not actual markers in the sense that you have actual markers, if that makes sense. But I also want to know what you guys think of this new card for Royal Paladin. Do you think that Twin Sword is as busted or broken as I personally think it's gonna be when it's revealed, as seen as it has so much synergy with all the archetypes? It's unrestricted in any kinds of sense. It's basically a single card setup that is a stride card. That makes it even more insane. So I'm very curious of what you guys think about this card and how you think it will work. Maybe you have a different combination or different combo or archetype which it can support, as these are the first thing that came to mind and are the more generic things that we have seen in the meta more recently. But maybe there's a different interaction that now comes out of nowhere because of this card that never was really relevant because it didn't get the good support card. But that's basically everything for me today. I want to thank my supporters over at Patreon, Priest and John Epperson, for supporting me in doing this channel, as well as providing you guys the content that you also love and hope to see. Basically, that's what I presume. And if you also want to support me directly, then go to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a Patreon today. And also have access to exclusive content. Also, as you might have noticed, we just hit the 5k subscriber mark. So that means a celebration on the channel. And we're doing a special Q&A where I'm going to answer all your questions. Might it be personal, might it be Vanguard related, might it be outside of YouTube, in YouTube. It can all be said, it can all be asked. To get your question featured, you can either comment on this video down below with your question, or go to my personal Twitter at Mr. Timeleap with the hashtag AskMrTimeleap to get your question as soon as possible and as effective as possible to me and I might feature your question in the upcoming Q&A 5K special. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I'll see you guys in the next one.